The scream echoed through the mansion like thunder. "Stop. Now." Helena slammed the bedroom door so hard that the doorknob hit the wall. In front of her, Veronica held a leather belt coiled in her right hand, her eyes fixed on the boy crouched in the corner. Lucas was only 5 years old. His face was red, marked by recent tears, and he trembled while clutching a worn stuffed teddy bear. "What do you think you're doing?" Helena stepped forward, placing herself between the woman and the child. Veronica let out a short laugh, adjusting her impeccable blonde hair. "Taking care of his education, something you clearly don't understand. Go back to the kitchen." But Helena didn't move. Her 53 years of life had taught her to recognize evil when she saw it. And that wasn't discipline. It was pure cruelty. It all started 6 months earlier, when Eduardo brought Veronica home for the first time. He had been a widower for 2 years, since his wife died in a car accident. Eduardo spent weeks traveling for business, leaving Lucas in the care of Helena, who had worked in the house since before the boy was born. She saw his first steps, heard his first words, treated his first injuries. Veronica arrived like an elegant hurricane. A successful lawyer, always wearing designer clothes, speaking 3 languages and attending exclusive events. Eduardo seemed hypnotized. In 3 months, they were engaged. In 4, she moved into the mansion. At first, Veronica pretended to be attentive with Lucas. She smiled when Eduardo was around, touched the boy's hair with rehearsed delicacy. But as soon as the father left for another business trip, the mask fell. Helena noticed it in the first week. Lucas stopped running around the house. He stopped laughing out loud. He began apologizing for insignificant things. Once, he spilled a glass of juice at breakfast and was so terrified that he started crying before anyone even said anything. "It was an accident, I promise, it was an accident," he repeated, his hands shaking. Veronica just looked at Helena with an icy smile. "Clean that up. And teach this boy some manners." But the signs got worse. Lucas began refusing food. He had nightmares every night. One morning, Helena found a purple mark on his arm, perfectly round, as if someone had squeezed it hard. "How did you hurt yourself, my angel?" Lucas lowered his eyes. "I fell." A lie. She knew that boy far too well. But he was afraid. Afraid to speak. Afraid of being punished. Afraid of not being believed. Helena tried to talk to Eduardo on the phone, but he was always too busy, always ending calls halfway through. "Helena, please, don't exaggerate. Veronica is wonderful with Lucas. He's just adjusting to having a new maternal figure." Maternal. The word burned in Helena's throat. And then that day came. Eduardo had traveled abroad. Veronica was irritated because Lucas spilled paint during a school activity. She dragged him to his bedroom, took the belt that had belonged to the boy's late father, and raised her arm. That was when Helena screamed. Now, standing there between Veronica and Lucas, Helena felt her heart pounding in her chest. She had no money, no power, no regularized documents. She lived in fear of being fired, of losing the only job she knew, of abandoning the boy she loved like a son. But looking into Lucas's frightened eyes was enough. "You are not going to touch him." Veronica took a step forward, her face twisted with fury. "You're fired. Get your things and get out of my house." "This is not your house," Helena replied, her voice firm. "And as long as I'm here, you will not hurt this boy." The silence that followed was heavy. Veronica narrowed her eyes, slowly putting the belt away, like someone storing a weapon they still intend to use. "We'll see who Eduardo is going to believe," she said, leaving the room with calculated steps. Helena knelt beside Lucas and hugged him. He cried on her shoulder, small and far too fragile to carry so much fear. That night, while Lucas finally slept, Helena stayed awake in the kitchen. She knew Veronica wouldn't let that go. She knew a silent war had begun. But she also knew she had no choice. Because some battles aren't about winning. They're about not giving up. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment saying what you think so far and which city or country you're watching from. And while the mansion slept, Helena made a decision. She needed proof. She needed to make Eduardo see the truth. Because time was running out, and something inside her told her that the worst was yet to come. The following days were like a cold war. Veronica didn't yell, she didn't openly threaten. She did something worse. She waited. Helena felt the woman's eyes on her with every movement. In the kitchen, in the living room, in the hallway. Veronica prowled the mansion like a predator, smiling when necessary, but always watching, always planning. Lucas no longer left his room without looking around first. He ate little, spoke even less. At night, Helena heard his muffled sobs through the wall. She would go there, sit on the edge of the bed, and hold his small hand until the boy fell asleep. "You are safe with me, my angel. You always will be." But the truth was that Helena didn't know if she could keep that promise. 3 days after the confrontation, Veronica came down for breakfast with a folder of documents. She placed it on the table with a sharp thud, right in front of Helena. "How long have you been working here again?" Helena wiped her hands on her apron. 16 years. 16 years, Veronica repeated, flipping through the papers. "And tell me, Helena, is all your documentation in order? Signed contract, taxes paid, work visa up to date?" Helena's blood ran cold. She knew exactly where this was heading. "I've been taking care of this boy since he was born." "That's not what I asked." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Veronica closed the folder and leaned over the table, her voice low and venomous. "You have 2 options. The first, pack your things, disappear, and I'll pretend you never existed. The second, I make a few calls and ensure you're deported by the end of the week. Choose wisely." Helena clenched her fists. Every muscle in her body screamed to fight back, to yell, to deliver justice. But she swallowed her pride. "I understand." "Great. Then get back to work and stop meddling where you're not wanted." But Helena had no intention of giving up. She just changed her strategy. That afternoon, when Veronica went out for a meeting, Helena entered the woman's office. Her hands shook as she opened drawers, flipped through documents, searching for anything she could use as evidence. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for, but she knew Veronica was hiding something. People like her always hid something. At the bottom of a locked drawer, which Helena opened with a hairpin, she found a manila envelope. Inside were photos. Photos of Veronica with a man who was not Eduardo. Photos in hotels, restaurants, compromising hugs. And there was more, receipts of bank transfers to foreign accounts, printed emails with suspicious conversations about Eduardo's business. Helena photographed everything with her old cell phone, her hands sweating. Each click sounded like thunder in her ears. She needed to be fast. She needed to be invisible. Suddenly, she heard the front door open. Veronica had returned. Helena hurriedly put everything away, closed the drawer, and left the office at the last second. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure Veronica could hear it. "Helena?" The voice came from the hallway. "I'm here, ma'am. I was cleaning the living room." Veronica appeared in the doorway, her suspicious eyes scanning the room. "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am." A silence. Veronica took a step forward, analyzing every detail. Helena kept her breathing steady, her face neutral. Finally, Veronica turned her back. "Prepare dinner. Eduardo returns tomorrow." Helena went up to the back room where she lived, locked the door, and let her tears fall. She was playing a dangerous game. If Veronica discovered what she had done, there would be no second chance. But when she looked at the photos on her phone, she knew she had something valuable. Something that could change everything. That night, Lucas had another nightmare. Helena went to his room and found the boy sitting on the bed, hugging his teddy bear, eyes wide with fear. "She's going to hurt me again, Helena. I know she will." Helena sat beside him and held his face in both hands. "Listen carefully, my love. I promise I won't let anything bad happen to you. Your father comes back tomorrow, and everything will change. Do you trust me?" Lucas nodded, but the fear was still there. Fear no child should have to carry. As she returned to her own room, Helena crossed paths with Veronica in the hallway. The woman was in a silk nightgown, arms crossed, a cruel smile on her lips. "You know, Helena, you should have accepted my offer. Now it's too late." "What do you mean by that?" "You'll find out," Veronica replied, entering the main room and closing the door. Helena stood in the dark hallway, fear climbing her spine. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And she didn't know what it was. But one thing was clear, Veronica was not just cruel. She was dangerous. And Eduardo's return the next morning would be the decisive moment. Helena needed to be ready. She needed to be smarter. Because the war had just begun, and she was fighting not only for her own survival, but for the life of an innocent boy who had no one left to protect him. Eduardo arrived the next morning, tired from the trip, his suitcase still in hand. Veronica came down the stairs like an actress entering a scene, the perfect smile, the impeccable dress, arms open. "Love, you're home." He hugged her, kissed her forehead. Helena watched from the kitchen, her hands gripping the dishcloth. Lucas was hiding upstairs, far enough away for his father not to notice. "Where's Lucas?" Eduardo asked, looking around. "Still sleeping, poor thing," Veronica replied, stroking his arm. "He had a busy week at school." A lie. Lucas hadn't slept properly in days. Helena took a deep breath. It was now or never. "Mr. Eduardo, may I speak with you for a moment?" Veronica turned her face immediately, her eyes flashing a silent warning. But Eduardo nodded. "Of course, Helena. What is it?" "In private, please. It's important." Veronica took a step forward. "I'm sure you can speak in front of me, Helena. After all, we're a family." "No," Helena said firmly. "I need to speak only with Mr. Eduardo." The silence was tense. Eduardo looked from one to the other, confused, but eventually agreed. "All right. Let's go to the office." Veronica went up the stairs with furious steps. Helena knew there would be consequences, but she could no longer wait. In the office, Eduardo sat behind the desk, taking off his jacket. "So what happened?" Helena slipped her hand into the pocket of her apron and took out her phone. Her hands trembled as she showed the photos. One by one. Veronica with another man. The receipts. The emails. Everything. Eduardo went pale. He took the phone, zoomed in on the images, read the dates. His hands began to shake too. "Where did you get this?" "In her office. I know I shouldn't have gone through her things, but Mr. Eduardo, I had to. Because this isn't even the worst part." She took the phone back and opened another file. An audio recording. Her own voice, recorded the night before. "Lucas, my love, can you tell me what happened today?" The boy's voice came next, low and frightened. "She locked me in the closet. Because I didn't eat everything at lunch. I stayed in there a long time, Helena. It was dark. I called out, but no one heard me." Eduardo stood up from the chair as if he had been punched. "Is this true?" "Every word. And there's more. The marks on his arm, the nightmares, the hunger, the fear. It all started when she arrived. Your son is suffering, Mr. Eduardo. And I can't stay silent anymore." He ran his hands over his face, breathing heavily. Helena saw the man collapse in front of her. Guilt, shock, pain. All at once. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I tried. But you never had time. And she threatened me. Said she would deport me, take me away from here. But I don't care anymore. They can send me away, they can do whatever they want to me. I just can't leave that boy alone with her." Eduardo sat down again, his eyes red. For long minutes, he just stared at the photos, at the documents, processing the betrayal, the violence, the lie. "Where is Lucas now?" "In his room." "Call him here." Helena went upstairs and found Lucas sitting on the floor drawing. When he saw Helena, his eyes filled with tears. "Is she mad at me?" "No, my angel. Your father wants to talk to you. And this time, he's going to listen to you. I promise." She held his hand and they went down together. In the office, Eduardo opened his arms. Lucas ran to him and threw himself into his lap, crying so hard his whole body shook. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." "No, son. I'm the one who's sorry. For not seeing it. For not being here." Helena stood at the doorway, watching that moment. For the first time in months, she felt relief. Small, fragile, but real. Then the office door burst open. Veronica stormed in, her face twisted with fury. "What is this maid saying about me?" "Eduardo, you're not going to believe her inventions, are you?" Eduardo stood up, still holding Lucas in his arms. "Inventions? These photos are inventions? These audios are lies?" Veronica froze. Her eyes searched for the phone on the desk, the evidence spread out. She tried to laugh, but the sound came out fake. You went through my things? That's a crime. A crime is what you did to my son. I was just trying to discipline a spoiled boy. You're always away, someone has to set limits. Locking him in a closet is setting limits? Threatening him is educating? Eduardo's voice rose, firm and hard. Get out of my house. Now. Veronica took a step back, incredulous. You're throwing me out because of a maid and a brat? I'm throwing you out because you are a liar, a con artist, and an abuser. And if you don't leave now, I'll call the police. Veronica's face twisted in pure hatred. She looked at Helena with murderous eyes. You will regret this. But Helena did not look away. Not this time. Veronica left, slamming the door. The sound echoed through the mansion like a gunshot. And for the first time in months, the house fell silent. A different kind of silence. Not one of fear, but of relief. Veronica didn't leave. 3 hours later, when Eduardo thought she had already left town, the front door opened again. But this time, she was not alone. 2 police officers entered the room. One of them was holding a court order. The other had handcuffs. Eduardo Almeida? The older officer asked. Yes, that's me. What's going on? We have an order to investigate allegations of irregular work and abuse of authority. Ms. Veronica Costa filed a formal complaint against the employee of this residence for invasion of privacy, theft of documents, and defamation. Helena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Veronica entered behind the officers, arms crossed, a victorious smile on her lips. I told you you'd regret it. Eduardo stepped in front of Helena. One moment. This woman was just expelled from this house for child abuse. I have proof of that. The younger officer sighed. Sir, we need to follow protocol. The complaint has been filed, and there are serious accusations. We will need to take the employee for questioning. She has a name, Eduardo said firmly. Helena. And she is not going anywhere without a lawyer. Veronica laughed. Lawyer? She doesn't even have documents. It's illegal. She should be deported, not protected. Helena felt tears burn in her eyes. Everything she had fought for, everything she had risked, was falling apart. Veronica had turned the tables. She had used the law, the system, the power that Helena never had. Lucas appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes wide. Dad, what are they going to do with Helena? Eduardo looked at his son, then at Helena, then at the officers. He took a deep breath and made a decision. Wait here. He went up to the bedroom, returned with a laptop, and placed it on the living room table. He opened files, connected Helena's phone, and projected everything onto the large TV on the wall. You want proof? I'll show proof. Photos appeared on the screen. Veronica with another man. Receipts of bank transfers. Compromising emails about the embezzlement of Eduardo's company funds. Each image larger than life, impossible to ignore. Veronica turned pale. This is fake. Fake? Eduardo grabbed papers from a drawer. These are bank statements my accountant sent me yesterday. $200,000 are missing from the company account. Transferred to an account in your name in the Cayman Islands. The older officer took the documents, examined them carefully. His expression changed. Ma'am, you will need to come with us for clarification. Me? Are you crazy? She invaded my privacy. And you committed financial fraud and child abuse, Eduardo retorted. Pick which crime you want to answer for first. Then Lucas came down the stairs. Slowly. Each step too heavy for a 5-year-old. He stopped in front of the older officer and rolled up his sleeve. The marks were still there. Purple, yellowed, shaped like fingers. She did this, Lucas said, his voice thin but firm. And locked me in the dark. And said if I told anyone, she would do worse. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. The officer knelt in front of Lucas, his face softening. You are very brave, young man. Veronica tried to step back, but the younger officer was already behind her. Veronica Costa, you are under arrest for investigation of child abuse, financial fraud, and threats. You have the right to remain silent. The handcuffs clicked. Veronica looked around desperately, searching for a way out that didn't exist. Her eyes met Helena's. And for the first time, there was no arrogance there. Only fear. You ruined my life, Veronica spat. Helena stepped forward, her voice low but firm. No. You ruined your own life the moment you decided to hurt a child. The officers took Veronica out. She screamed, threatened, promised to sue everyone. But no one was listening anymore. When the door closed, Eduardo let himself fall onto the couch. Lucas ran to him and snuggled in his arms. Helena stood still processing what had happened. Are you okay? Eduardo asked, looking at her. Helena nodded, but the tears finally fell. Not from fear this time. From relief. From exhaustion. From victory. Eduardo stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. Helena, I can never thank you enough for what you did. You saved my son. You saved this family. I just did what was right. No, he said firmly. You did what most people wouldn't have the courage to do. You faced someone more powerful, knowing you could lose everything. And yet you didn't give up. Lucas let go of his father's hand and hugged Helena's waist. Thank you, Helena. For not leaving me alone. Helena knelt and hugged the boy with all the strength she had. That hug carried 16 years of care, months of fear, days of silent struggle. And finally, it brought peace. Outside, the sun was setting. The mansion, which had been a prison of fear for so long, began to breathe again. The war was over. And this time, the victor was not power, not money. It was the courage of a woman who refused to stay silent. 6 months later, the mansion was different. Not in structure. The walls were the same, the furniture was in the same places. But something fundamental had changed. The house was breathing again. Lucas was in the garden, laughing as he chased a ball. His laughter echoed clear, free, without fear. He still had nightmares sometimes, still woke up in the middle of the night looking for Helena. But the intervals between episodes were getting longer and longer. Therapy was helping. Twice a week, a psychologist specialized in childhood trauma talked with him, teaching ways to process fear, to understand that what happened was not his fault. Gradually, Lucas was becoming a child again. Eduardo had changed too. He canceled half of his business trips. Hired a partner to share the workload. Now, he was home for breakfast, took Lucas to school, read stories before bed. He could not erase the months of absence, but he could be present from now on. And Helena? Helena finally had peace. Eduardo took care of all her paperwork. Hired specialized lawyers, regularized contracts, ensured she had full labor rights. More than that, he increased her salary, opened a savings account in her name, and made sure she could bring her sick mother to live with them in a house at the back of the property. You are part of this family, Eduardo had said. And family takes care of family. That afternoon, Helena was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard the doorbell. She wiped her hands and went to answer. A messenger handed her an official envelope. Inside were court documents. Veronica's trial had ended. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison for child abuse, financial fraud, and threats. In addition, she would have to pay substantial compensation to Lucas for moral damages. Helena closed the envelope and took a deep breath. She didn't feel joy at the news. Just a necessary closure. Veronica had made choices, and now she was paying for them. There was no victory in this, only justice. Eduardo entered the kitchen and saw the envelope. Did it arrive? It did. It's over. He nodded. You know, Helena, I think a lot about what would have happened if you hadn't screamed that day. If you had stayed silent, like so many people do. I couldn't, Helena replied, simply. I looked at that boy and I couldn't. And that makes all the difference, Eduardo said. Most people see wrong happening and find excuses not to act. Fear of losing their job, fear of causing trouble, fear of not being believed. But you chose the hard path. You chose to protect someone who couldn't protect themselves. Helena looked out the window. Lucas was drawing now, sitting on the grass, completely absorbed in his art. There were no more visible marks on his arms. But the invisible ones were still there, and it would take time for them to fully heal. Sometimes I wake up at night and think about what could have gone wrong, Helena confessed. What if you hadn't believed me? What if the police had taken me? What if Veronica had won? But she didn't win. Because you didn't give up. That night, during dinner, Lucas talked about his day at school. He had made 2 new friends, had gotten a good grade in math, had painted a picture that the teacher put on the classroom wall. "And do you know what I drew, Helena?" he said, excited. "What, my angel?" "Our family. Me, Daddy, and you. And I put hearts all around." Helena felt her eyes sting, but she smiled. "I would love to see that drawing." Lucas ran upstairs and returned with the sheet. There they were, the three of them, drawn in colored pencils, holding hands, huge smiles on their faces. At the top, in crooked childlike letters, it read, "My family that protects me." Eduardo and Helena exchanged glances. No words were needed. Later, after Lucas fell asleep, Eduardo and Helena had tea on the porch. The silence was comfortable now, no longer heavy with tension. "Have you thought about the future?" Eduardo asked. "What do you mean?" "Your plans. Dreams. You've spent so much time taking care of others that you must have something you want to do for yourself." Helena thought for a moment. "I've always wanted to study. I never had the opportunity. But now, with everything regularized, maybe I can take an evening course. Something in caregiving, maybe nursing. Then let's make that a reality. You deserve it." Helena smiled. For the first time in decades, the future didn't seem frightening. It seemed possible. Helena's story wasn't about heroism. It was about choice. The choice not to turn away when the easy thing would have been to pretend nothing was happening. The choice to protect, even when it meant risking everything. Because in the end, it's not the powerful people who change the world. It's the brave people. The ones who scream when everyone else stays silent. The ones who put themselves between danger and the defenseless. The ones who decide that some battles are worth fighting, no matter the cost. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment about what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. And remember, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite it. Be a Helena in someone's life.